Warning: spoilers for Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 4 Room for Growth Datas. Brent Spiner, infamous mask, makes a comeback in Star Trek Lower Decks, and it's still bad news for the crew of the USS Cerritos as it was for the USS Enterprise D in Star Trek The Generation. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 4, Room for Growth, sees ensigns Beckett Mariner, Tawny Newsome, Bradward Boimler, Jack Quaid, and Dee Van Attendee, Noel Wells, competing for better quarters on the Cerritos with Delta ship. Meanwhile, Captain Carol Freeman, Dawn Wells, takes the engineering team on a mandatory relaxation sabbatical after they had to clean up the Cerritos from the aftereffects of when Freeman wore a mask similar to Data's. Masks was the 17th episode of Star Trek The Generation Season 7, and it's not highly regarded by fans or by the cast and creatives of TNG. Written by Joe Menosky from a story premise by Michael Piller, Masks saw the USS Enterprise D intercept a rogue comet that contained an ancient Mayan-like civilization. The comet used the Enterprise's scans as a carrier wave to infect the ship and plant structures containing ancient symbols inside. Meanwhile, Data molded a mask that he wore as the android became infused with multiple personalities from then long-dead race. Chief among them was Masaka, the queen about to awaken. As the Enterprise is transformed into the civilization's temple, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, dons a mask of his own. Posing as Corgano, Picard convinces Masaka to sleep, reversing the effects of the ancient temple and saving the Enterprise. In Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 4, the exact same thing happens again. Captain Freeman ends up wearing a mask and is possessed by the spirit of the Queen, Minuki. Freeman as Minuki ends up transforming the USS Cerritos into an ancient temple. But Mariner mocks this ancient mask situation, rolling her eyes that this is like the third time it's happened. Stop touching masks. The lower deckers refuse to take the crisis seriously, and it's resolved off-screen, probably the exact same way Picard solved the problem in TNG. It's a quick but searing parody of Masks, which the cast and writers of TNG weren't happy with. Michael Dorn called Masks one of his least favorite episodes of TNG, while Brent Spiner was dismayed that he didn't have enough time to create the multiple distinct personalities the episode required of him, although Spiner still gave a splendid performance as Data and the various beings speaking through the possessed android. Why Lower Decks keeps repeating events from TNG-TOS Star Trek Lower Decks is a love letter to Star Trek, The Generation and the original series, and a lot of that deference involves putting the crew of the USS Cerritos in familiar situations that the USS Enterprise has boldly gone through before. This includes humanity being placed on trial, again, by Q, John Delancey, Commander Jack Ransom, Jerry O'Connell, turned into a psychic god by strange energies just as Gary Mitchell, Gary Lockwood, in TOS, and now, Captain Freeman possessed by an ancient mask. But beyond homage and parody, Lower Decks cleverly built in a rationale for why such events keep happening, because the California-class USS Cerritos specialty is second contact. Captain Freeman's ship and crew follow up missions by more important starships like the Enterprise and get caught in identical situations. Mariner previously joked about this flaw in Starfleet, that they're not so great at follow-through. Hence, lessons that should be learned often aren't heeded, and the bizarre circumstances that occur on ships like the Enterprise are often repeated by the Cerritos. However, the fact that the Cerritos gets into so much trouble and manages to overcome it all has begun to earn Captain Freeman's ship a legendary status within the California class of Starfleet in Star Trek Lower Decks, and they deserve the accolades. Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3 streams Thursdays on Paramount+.